3 spine-chilling tales of terrifying dreams that exposed haunted realities and cursed secrets. Sarah's heart raced as she glanced at the clock, its ticking harmonizing with her pulse, sending ripples of unease through her. The quiet suburban street, once a haven of laughter, now felt like a coffin, shadows creeping closer each night. Her newly divorced life weighed heavily on her. It was only supposed to be a fresh start for her and her kids, Lucy and Max. Yet, disquiet lingered like a fog, ready to consume them whole. One evening, as the golden sun dipped below the horizon, Lucy woke in a fit of terror. "Mommy, I dreamt about Mr. Jenkins," she cried, trembling as her wide eyes searched for comfort. The tall neighbor, with his too broad smile, had always been a friend until now. Sarah soothed her daughter, brushing off the fears as the imagination of a young mind trying to cope. But a knot twisted in her stomach that and the days that followed, their lives unraveled. Pets vanished, one by one, little yelps turned to eerie silence. Lucy's vivid nightmare mingled with strange symbols appearing overnight, curved shapes etched into fences and park benches. The shadows around their home thickened, and the once peaceful night air began to pulse with a sinister energy. Sarah's heart raced, the familiar streets transformed into a maze of darkness under the flickering streetlights. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Late one night, Sarah lay in bed, heart pounding, when a cacophony of whispers danced through the walls. She shot upright, every nerve screaming as she strained to listen. A low, haunting voice echoed, "Sarah." It terrified her, a deep fear clawing at her insides. Was something watching from the shadows? A shiver slithered down her spine. These moments had morphed from chilling dreams into nightmarish reality. Concealing her own trepidation, Sarah confided in fellow parents at school. Yet their dismissive chuckles stung. "Just a phase, they'd say," as if her fears were nothing but the ramblings of an overwhelmed single mother. The more she probed, the more isolated she felt. Night after night, she replayed the tales swirling around Mr. Jenkins, a figureless silhouette in town lore, weaving through histories of peaceful suburbia tainted by dark secrets. Disappearances traced like shadows, connecting him to missing pets, to whispers under the breath, a curse lingering, the street outside warped as if under a spell, an innocent block transformed into a sinister crossroads. As she pieced together the clues, dread settled thick in her throat. That forced calm in the neighborhood? Just an illusion. Every familiar sound, the chirping crickets, laughter echoing from neighbors' homes, wove a treacherous fabric, hiding unspeakable horrors. With her heart set on protecting her children, Sarah approached Mr. Jenkins. The very man who volunteered to watch over the kids now loomed like a ghost from her deepest fears. Under the dim streetlights, his grin felt all too wide, shadowed and menacing. Just as she opened her mouth to confront him, a chilling wind swept through, carrying an unmistakable scent: fear. The shadows deepened, and she sensed the weight of centuries behind those smiling eyes, secrets ready to snare her family in its grasp. Suddenly, a mournful cry ripped through the night, drawing all eyes to her home. Sarah felt the tightening of her throat, an instinctual urge to flee, but the door to her bathroom creaked open slowly. A bated silence blanketed the air. A shade glimmered, and inside, a reflection stared back at her, not just her face, but Lucy's and Max's, pale as death. They stood amidst shadows, entrapped, reaching for her in horror, and there, lurking behind them, the smiling figure awaited. And in that instant, she knew, this was just the beginning, and escaping the nightmares would demand more than just courage, it would demand a confrontation with the very essence of her worst fears. Would she be strong enough to unearth the truth before it consumed them all? The room felt colder, the shadows creeping closer as Sarah's eyes widened in horror. The bathroom light flickered, casting wavering images across the walls. That grotesque smile on Mr. Jenkins' face now eclipsed her thoughts. He wasn't just a neighbor anymore, he was the embodiment of her fears, lurking in the spaces where darkness thrived. "Get away from them!" she shouted, her voice cracking with a mix of anger and desperation. But the words fell flat, evaporating into the thick silence hanging around her. The children didn't move, their forms distorted, fingers outstretched but unable to reach her. The malevolent grin of Mr. Jenkins expanded into a sneer, revealing teeth that glinted like knives. Cold sweat dripped down Sarah's back as she stepped closer. "Mommy, help us!" Lucy's voice broke through, a feeble whisper that twisted Sarah's insides. They were trapped, her children caught in a web spun by fear itself. She slammed the bathroom door, but it resisted her push, as if something formidable held it shut from the other side. "No!" She threw her shoulder into it, heart racing. The pounding of her pulse drowned out the whispering that had taken root in the walls, echoing around her like demons waiting to be unleashed. "Sarah," that unsettling voice dripped through the door, sultry and inviting. "You should join them. They need you." With a surge of instinct, Sarah's pulse pounded in her ears. Was he playing with her? Or was there something far more sinister lying beneath? Her breath came quick and shallow. The air thickened with tension. She tore her gaze from the door, glancing at the hallway where echoes of laughter once filled her cozy home. Dark shapes twisted through every corner, blotting out the warmth that used to dwell there. Something inside her screamed to run, to hide, but she couldn't abandon Lucy and Max. Her heart raced in defiance. She had to fight, driven by a primal urge to protect them. With a deep breath, she forced her weight against the door one last time, ripping it open into the darkness. The bathroom was empty. Stunned, Sarah stumbled back, breathless. The mirror reflected not just her horror but the lingering chill that enveloped the room. She scanned every corner, but the children were gone. In their place, a chilling wind slithered through the cracks, whispering secrets that constricted her mind. As she turned back to the hallway, a sudden shriek echoed from outside. She bolted toward the front door, swinging it open with a rush of hope. Maybe they were there. But outside waited a scene of suburban normalcy, where nothing seemed amiss except for the stench of decay that wafted through the air, prickling her skin. She stepped out, dread pooling in her stomach. The streetlights flickered ominously. Neighbors peered through their curtains, their faces shadows against the light, and her heart sank as she realized no one would come to help. Their indifference wrapped around her like a vice. "Lucy! Max!" Panic laced her voice. But the stillness answered her back. The breadwinner image of suburban bliss faded away, revealing a web woven with darkened secrets. A shrill laughter cut through the silence, chilling Sarah to the bone. It was a sound that did not belong here, an echo from a nightmare manifesting in broad daylight. The laughter seemed to draw closer, taunting her, calling to her like a siren in the night, and then, from the shadows, Mr. Jenkins appeared, an ominous figure lurking at the edge of their yard. His eyes sparkled with malice, a predator awaiting the perfect moment to strike. "They're closer than you think," he rasped, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that sent shivers through her bones. Something deep within her knew that if she didn't act now, she would lose them forever. "Where are my children?" she demanded, fear like fire in her veins. That he leaned forward, and she could almost see the darkness swirling around him. "Find the truth, Sarah. You're running out of time." And before she could gather her thoughts, he vanished, leaving behind a vacuum of silence, and clouds of doubt spiraling. In her mind, shadows nudged her senses, warning her that the worst was yet to come. The house felt heavy with secrets. What had her children stumbled upon? What truth loomed like a specter, waiting for her to uncover it? Sarah's legs trembled, but she steeled herself. She had to confront the darkness that was closing in. And as she stepped further into the night, the weight of a new horror settled upon her. What if the real curse lay not in Mr. Jenkins, but in their very home? A screech echoed from the bathroom, sending her heart racing again. What had she just unlocked? Her heart thudded painfully in her chest as Sarah hesitated, a spark of dread igniting in the pit of her stomach. The screech echoed once again, a sharp cry that pierced the night, slicing through the silence like glass. Each sound twisted in her mind, weaving an ever thicker tapestry of fear. "Lucy! Max!" She called, but her voice trembled, swallowed by the thick air that hung heavy around her. With a resolve built on desperation, she stepped back into the house, forcing herself to move toward the bathroom, her breath hitching with every step. The door stood slightly ajar, shadows flickering inside like restless spirits. She pushed it open fully, brave or foolish, maybe both. The room was a shadowy cavern, darkness pooling in the corners, cradling secrets she feared to unveil. "Mommy?" The voice drifted from the far end of the bathroom, a soft plea that was so vulnerable, it sent chills racing down her spine. "Lucy?" Her heart took flight, hoping, praying. She willed her trembling legs to move, to hurry, but the floor felt unyielding beneath her. Every terrible instinct screamed that whatever lay ahead was dangerous, and then silence. She stepped into the bathroom, eyes scanning frantically. The mirror glared back at her, showing not just her fear but also those behind her, two dark forms standing in the flickering light. The children stood together, mouth agape in silent screams, as if caught in a moment too horrific to articulate. A cold hand gripped her heart. "No!" she gasped, rushing forward. But as she neared them, their figures jittered and warped, and before her eyes, they faded like smoke. Only the chilling laughter remained, wrapping around her like chains. The mirror rippled, and she stumbled backward, her gaze widening as she saw a reflection, a glimpse of the familiar bathroom, but drenched in shadows, shadows that twisted and writhed like living things. A flash of Mr. Jenkins, his sinister grin stretching impossibly wide, flickering briefly like a corrupted film reel. "Sarah!" His voice echoed from the depths of the glass, mocking her, drawing her in. "The truth waits for you." Panic surged through her. "No! I will not." But before the protest fully formed, the image shifted, morphing into a vision of the street outside, where laughter transformed into screams. Bodies twisted in agony, neighbors floated like lost souls, their eyes hollow and empty. She felt the urge to scream but swallowed it back, heart racing as she wrenched herself away from the mirror. It felt alive, the glass pulsing like a heartbeat, threatening to pull her in. She spun around, seeking escape through the door, but a weight pressed upon her as if shadows grasped at her ankles. Sarah tore the door open, gasping for air as she stumbled back out into the hallway. Just outside, a figure loomed, blocking the path. The hallway light flickered, illuminating the face of a child, but it wasn't Lucy. The child's eyes were sunken, hollow, void of life. "Help us," it whispered, the words a chorus of the damned, echoing in her mind. "No!" She staggered back, horror turning her stomach. Outside, the laughter continued, now amplified, swelling into a cacophony that drummed in her ears. It sounded like her children, but tainted, twisted with a malice that curled around her heart. A rush of desperate need propelled her toward the front door again. The street sprawled out before her. Only this time it was darker. Shadows pooled in the corners, whispers slithered around her, and all at once, the reality of her surroundings seemed to warp. The park where her kids played was replaced by a dense thicket, a wave of horror crashing against her senses. What was this place? Then, through the shadows, Mr. Jenkins materialized once more, a puppet master controlling the strings of her worst fears. "You jog too far from reality, Sarah. Run all you want, but they belong to the darkness now." With those words, the laughter morphed into a wailing tempest, pulling her into its depth, making the ground tremble beneath her. She felt it, a grip closing around everything she ever loved, and panic clawed its way up her throat. Suddenly, a thought struck her. The secrets her children found, it could be the key. She must find it. But how? In that moment, the air thickened, and the shadows seemed to whisper truths she longed to ignore. "Find the door," a voice, low and haunting, urged her, promising escape and yet making her doubt everything she ever knew. As the laughter grew louder, she felt the darkness closing in like a noose. What door awaited her? What if it led her deeper into the horror? She stood at the cusp of a choice, teetering on the edge of both hope and despair. And just then, another piercing scream erupted from the house. Lucy! A new wave of fear washed over her, pulling Sarah into the depths of uncertainty. The chase had only just begun, and with each heartbeat, the darkness promised that it would not let go easily. The scream echoed again, sharp and desperate. It twisted through the air, seizing Sarah's heart in a vice grip. Lucy! The name slipped from her lips like a prayer, but the shadows swallowed it whole, mocking her with their silence. With urgency clawing at her insides, she darted through the door, into the living room. The familiar space was a nightmare version of itself. The wallpaper, once cheerful and bright, peeled away, revealing something darker underneath dark stains that pooled like spilled ink. Flickering lights cast jagged shadows across the room, wrapping around furniture like hungry tendrils. Where was her daughter? Max, where are you? She called out, her voice barely a whisper. But the answer was a guttural growl, low and menacing, thrumming through the air like a warning bell. The sound surged from the basement stairwell, an open maw waiting to swallow her whole. Sarah hesitated, her instinct screaming against the idea of descending into that darkness. But Lucy's cries twisted around her like a vice. She was down there. Sarah had to know. Lurching toward the staircase, she took the first step and felt the wooden stair creak ominously beneath her weight. Each step felt heavier than the last, the air thickening with dread. The growl morphed into a raspy whisper, calling her deeper. Join us, she froze, chills cascading down her spine. The sound teased the boundary between reality and nightmare, luring her down into the bowels of her home. No, she whispered, knowing that whatever waited beneath was not her children. But the darkness beckoned, weaving a spell of despair. Sarah, help us! Their voices echoed from below, patching together remnants of her children, twisting every memory into something grotesque. Before she could back away, the whisper drove her forward. As she reached the bottom, her heart plummeted. The basement was an abyss, its corners swallowed by thick blackness. The walls pulsed, like they were breathing, and in the center lay an old, warped door, heavy and dark, pulsing life like the mirror above. What is this? She shuddered, stepping closer. A sudden sharp whisper cut through the air like a knife. Open it. The command wrapped around her, tightening its grasp. Her hand trembled, hovering over the cold knob. No, I can't. But the whispers erupted into frenzied laughter, the sound rising ominously, resonating with something deep within her. Dark tendrils seemed to snake from the door. Ignoring her instincts, Sarah reached out, gripping the handle. The moment she turned it, a wave of icy wind cut through her, compelling her to pull back. The door flew open with a groan, revealing a void beyond, an endless abyss that seemed to call her name. Mommy! Lucy's voice pierced the dark cloud swirling beyond the threshold, pulling Sarah forward. Lucy! Sarah gasped, stepping into the unknown, fear propelling her. But the instant she crossed the threshold, images swirled and morphed. The basement warped into a twisted version of her town, familiar yet horrifying, filled with anguished faces of neighbors, each shadow drowned in despair. What is happening? She staggered through it, longing for anyone who could pull her back to reality. But each step dragged her deeper into madness. Help us! It was Lucy's voice again, but higher, distorted. With growing dread, Sarah turned, searching the chaotic landscape for the source. Each face she glimpsed was a reflection of her own horror. They grinned with knowing, eyes gleaming with the darkness that engulfed them, taunting her to let go. The wheezing laughter echoed back around her, drowning out Lucy's cries. Panic surged. Had she stepped into a trap? She couldn't tell if it was a rescue or a descent into hell. Close the door. She yelled into the void, desperation lacing her words as shadows reached for her, eager to pull her into their fold. But every step backward felt like a betrayal, a severance from her children. Sarah felt frozen, caught in a realm where decisions hovered and truth lay behind cursed mirrors. What had she awakened? A deafening howl erupted, shattering the serenity of distorted reality. And then, from the chaos, Lucy appeared, her features gaunt, eyes wide with an otherworldly glow, standing at the precipice of fractured light. "Mommy, help us before it's too late." Sarah's heart twisted painfully. She was running out of time. What price would she have to pay to save her children from the abyss? With terror anchoring her feet, she faced the dark door once more, knowing that her choice was only beginning. The ground shook beneath her feet, vibrating with a malevolence that sent ripples of fear racing through Sarah. Lucy. The name burst from her throat, driven by panic. An unseen force seemed to wrap around her, urging her to stay, to embrace the shadows that stretched and writhed like living things. Lucy stood there, a beacon in a sea of chaos, but her eyes, oh, those eyes! They bore no warmth, only the echoing void of suffering. "You have to let go," her daughter whispered, voice dripping with urgency. "It knows you're here." Sarah's heart hammered. Let go? An image flickered across her mind, Max, lost and alone, a fragile sliver of innocence trapped within this nightmare. She couldn't abandon him. But could she trust this version of Lucy? Was this really her child? Or was it another cruel trick played by the darkness? As if sensing her hesitation, tendrils of shadow crept closer, seeking to envelope her. "Mommy, please." Lucy's voice broke, morphing into a terrible wail that pierced through the shroud of illusion. Shadows clawed at Sarah, tugging at her legs, trying to siphon her further into the chaos. "Stay back!" she screamed, though her voice trembled. For a split second, she considered the door, the safety it might offer, but the vision of Lucy twisted her resolve. The shadows pulsed harder, filling her with dread. "Mommy! You have to believe me." With a frantic, racing heartbeat, Sarah took a step forward. The distorted landscape rippled. "What do you want?" she yelled at the chaos. A chorus of whispers arose, rising and falling like a dark wave. "Join us, stay, become one with the lost." It was seductive, wrapping around her like a blanket, promising solace from her fears. Contentment. "No!" Sarah screamed. "I won't lose you." She fought back, pushing forward as the whispers clawed at her sanity, but then a shift. The ground quaked again, and her determination faltered. "Mommy!" Lucy's form quivered, the shadows closing in tighter around her, threatening to swallow her whole. Sarah felt paralyzed, born between instinct and maternal desperation. Would stepping back be a betrayal? Panic surged as Sarah realized the truth: Lucy wasn't just a victim. She was caught in this twisted game. The thing beckoning Sarah forward knew their greatest fear. It twisted their bond into something cruel, taunting her with visions of what could be no. Sarah grasped the edges of reality, mind racing, recalling her daughter's laughter, her innocent questions. "You're my Lucy. My brave Lucy." For a fleeting heartbeat, the air quieted. Lucy's gaze flickered, a glimmer of recognition sparking within those hollowed eyes. "Mommy, break it. You have to break it." What was she asking? What did that mean? Suddenly, dissonance shattered the stillness. A scream, the sound of pure anguish. A neighbor from her past, Susan, materialized from the swirling fog, her features distorted with terror. "Help me!" she cried, hands reaching out. Sarah's gut twisted. "Susan! What happened? Let me in." Susan's voice was desperate, pleading, echoing. But behind her rose an ominous shadow, creeping slowly, its presence suffocating, feeding off despair. In that moment, clarity crashed over Sarah. The door was more than a barrier, it was a choice, one that risked them all. "I won, let it win." With newfound strength, Sarah lunged forward, arms outstretched to Lucy, determination nodding in her chest. "We can fight it. Together." But just as she reached for her daughter, the dark shadow lunged, a cacophony of anguish erupting from the abyss. Biting cold fingers snatched at Sarah, pulling her toward the gaping maw of the unknown. Would she make it? Could she reach her children? Or was she stepping into a trap from which there would be no return? The shadows writhed, closing in like a vice, an echo of horrid laughter resonating in the darkness. And there, in the depths of despair, the ultimate question loomed: what if salvation condemned them all? With her heart pounding, Sarah stood at the precipice, faced with the dark truth of her fractured family and the darkness that threatened to consume them from within. She had to choose before it was too late. Sarah felt the world around her beginning to twist, pulling her in multiple directions at once, a violent storm of shadows and screams. "Lucy!" She yelled again, voice raw and desperate. The sound echoed, swallowed by the howling darkness that surrounded her. The shadows tightened around her, coiling like the serpents of her deepest fears. Lucy's face warped, her once beloved features twisting grotesquely with despair. "Help me please." The words pierced through the darkness, yet they sent shivers down Sarah's spine. What was happening to her child? Could it be a deception, a trick, a shadow made to look like Lucy? Every instinct shouted for her to step back, to flee to the door, to escape this nightmare, but then, just as suddenly, the shadow dissipated for a heartbeat, revealing glimpses of her daughter's true self beneath the nightmare. "Mommy!" Lucy pleaded, tears falling like raindrops of glittering sorrow, washing away the dark. It was enough to light a spark of hope in Sarah's chest. "No, no, I'm here, I'm coming." But even as she fought against the instinct to run, dark tendrils surged toward her. These were not simply shadows, they were mocking her, echoing her fears. They tugged at her heart, manipulating her memories, transforming the warmth of her daughter's embrace into a chilling void. The laughter of lost memories twisted into screams of betrayal. "Break it. You have to break it now." Lucy's command cut through the horror like a blade. What was it? How could she ever hope to fight against this force wrapping around them both? Without thinking, Sarah lunged for Lucy, longing to reach her. But as she did, the shadow coalesced into a form imposing, malicious. It loomed there, a figure garbed in darkness, an entity born of her deepest terrors. It extended a hand, and the air thickened, the scent of decay and despair swirling around her. "Let her go!" Sarah shouted, fury coursing through her veins. But was that darkness the true enemy, or was it just a manifestation of her own fears, breathing life into her insecurities? Whispers filled her mind, "Join us, stay, give in." But giving in meant losing Lucy. It meant losing the fight for Max too. She had to be stronger than the shadows. Her heart clenched tight, unleashing a wave of courage she didn't know she had. "Lucy! Reach for me." She thrust her arm forward, palm open, beseeching, pleading. With crushing intensity, the darkness swelled, pulling Sarah down into the very abyss she feared most. She found herself grasping for the fading echo of her daughter's voice, willing the shadows to release their grip. But urgency transformed into despair. What if this was a trap? And then she felt it, a flicker of warmth at the tips of her fingers. "I'm here, Mom." Lucy's voice was clearer now, stronger, fighting against the void. Sarah turned her head, catching a glimpse of Lucy struggling against the tide. Determined, she took a leap of faith. Suddenly, they collided. Shockwaves rippled through Sarah's body, illuminating the dark landscape around them. The chaos froze, silence extending like a stretched rubber band, ready to snap. The world held its breath. In that moment, she grasped something, the truth that shattered the illusion. "You are my daughter. You will always be my daughter," she declared, and the shadows recoiled as if burned, but the relief was fleeting. A new sound began to emerge, a creaking, ancient sound, from the very ground beneath them. The shadows undulated, regrouping with renewed ferocity, rage boiling at the edges of Sarah's vision. "Mommy!" Lucy cried, voice tinged with terror as the dark mass retaliated, pulling them apart. "You have to." The earth trembled beneath them, threatening to fracture into nothingness. A new choice loomed on the horizon. Desperation began to morph into clarity, and Sarah felt the weight of a decision pressing down. Would she embrace the shadows and risk their eternal bond? Or would she fight the darkness, knowing it might claim them both? The ground quaked, and in the chaos surrounding them, Sarah braced for what came next, the shadows swirling. With a new menace, and a terrifying question lingered: what if the cost of breaking free meant losing what she loved most? As the shadows snapped like jaws around them, she felt a chilling realization settle in. Sometimes to save one, you must be willing to destroy part of yourself. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, each beat reverberating louder than the chaos around her. The momentum of the shadows tugged her in all directions, trying to siphon her spirit away from Lucy. She could feel the weight of panic pressing at her throat, but determination ignited within her, fiercer than the encroaching darkness. "Lucy! Stay with me!" She clawed her way forward through the murky air, her resolve as fragile as glass yet shimmering bright. Though the shadows hissed and spat, they recoiled from her voice, each syllable shoved back into the abyss. "Mommy, it's not just them." Lucy gasped, fighting against the darkness. Her arms flailed as though tethered to an invisible noose. "It's me, it's my fears too." A cold dread seeped into Sarah's bones, but she pressed on. Part of her was terrified, rattled by the truth echoing in Lucy's words. Could this nightmare stem not just from the shadows but from within her own daughter? The thought struck deep, leaving her breathless. "Then we fight together," Sarah shouted, feeling the surge of courage consuming her doubt. "Together." The darkness shrieked, losing some of its power in the face of their bond. Lucy's clarity sharpened, the shadows flickering as Sarah reached out, fingers brushing against her child's warmth. In that instant, something shifted. A spectral force surged from Lucy, illuminating the depth of their connection. The dark entity buckled, sensing the light rising from within the tiny spark of hope that bonded them. "Concentrate on your love for me, Lucy," Sarah urged, her voice trembling. "Don't let it take you. You're stronger than it." Lucy drew in a shaky breath, and for a moment, her face returned to its familiar glow. "I love you, Mommy. I won't let it win." But as they each summoned their love into a weapon against the void, it retaliated with an anguished roar. The shadows thickened, forming claws that slashed viciously at their connection, attempting to sever the tether that linked their souls. "Stay strong," Sarah shouted, even as the air grew heavy with despair. "Do not let it in." Abruptly, a blinding light erupted from their joined hands, forcing the shadows to retreat momentarily. Sarah squinted, shielding her eyes from the brightness, and saw Lucy's figure glowing with confidence, feeding off the radiance of their bond. Yet the ground beneath them continued to quake, and the walls of darkness began to collapse inward, no longer just a backdrop of terror, now a menacing predator. Disjointed whispers spiraled through the chaos, clawing at Sarah's mind. "You'll never escape, it will all end in pain." With panic gripping her heart, she felt an ache, a deep-rooted sorrow struggling to surface. Could it really end in pain? Then she noticed Lucy faltering, shadows wrapping around her feet, pulling at her like tendrils of smoke. "Mom! I can't hold it." Lucy's voice was laced with urgency and fear. A desperate thought flashed in Sarah's mind like lightning. "You have to let go of your fear, Lucy. It can't touch you if you refuse to let it." But that was the crux of it. For years they had suppressed demons, fears simmering beneath the surface, revealing frayed edges of guilt and sorrow. What if letting go meant confronting those truths? The shadows were creeping closer, hunger glinting in every gleaming tendril. "Sarah, help me!" Lucy cried, the fear in her voice echoing deep within Sarah's bones. With a grieving heart, she took a step closer to her daughter, feeling the shadows lash out, but she didn't retreat. "I will," she promised. "You are my light." But before her words could take root, the ground beneath them split open like a mouth, revealing a dark chasm. And from it rose the echoes of every regret she'd ever harbored. Sarah let go. A whisper taunted her. Let it all go. A choice lay before her, daunting and dark, and the weight felt unbearable. As she reached for Lucy once more, could she summon the courage to confront the darkness within and find the strength to save them both? The ground trembled violently, drawing both mother and daughter to the edge of the abyss, where hope flickered like a wavering candle. With shadows creeping closer than ever, Sarah braced herself, knowing that whatever lay ahead could shatter them or emerge as their salvation. Would she dare take that plunge into the void? The chasm yawned wide, dark and inviting, whispering secrets only the dead could recall. Sarah's heart raced, beating a frantic rhythm that matched the chaotic pull of the shadows. Each breath she took seemed met by the relentless pull of despair. The edges of the abyss shimmered, reflecting fragments of her past memories of moments she wished she could forget. "Mommy!" Lucy's voice shot out like an arrow, piercing through the veil of hopelessness. "You can't, please. Don't look away." Sarah's gaze snapped back to her daughter, whose eyes, once bright, now shimmered like glass under the weight of the darkness. The shadows twisted around Lucy's frame, an insatiable fog hungry for her spirit. Panic clawed at Sarah, a relentless beast gnawing at her insides. A deep primal instinct screamed at her, save Lucy at any cost. "I want to let it take you," Sarah shouted, her voice steadying as desperation morphed into resolve. She felt the flicker of love fuel her, rippling through the shadows like a shockwave, but the abyss was growing by the second, its dark whispers growing louder. "What is fear?" they hissed, taunting her. "It's your essence, you cannot escape it." "Shut up," Sarah screamed, clenching her fists. "You don't own us." The moment she spoke those defiant words, she felt the edges of the abyss tremble, as if responding to her defiance. It recoiled slightly, but it wasn't enough. The shadows lunged forward, slippery tendrils racing toward them, ready to snatch Lucy away. "Mom!" Lucy's small voice quivered, her eyes wide, reflecting the raw panic that Sarah felt deep in her own core. I can't hold on." The realization hit Sarah like a slap. If Lucy's fears were feeding this nightmare, they needed to confront those fears head-on. Could they really uproot years of buried pain? "Then we let it all out," Sarah yelled, her voice rising above the cacophony. "We release every fear, every regret we've ever held inside. Together." She didn't wait for Lucy's response. Grasping both of Lucy's hands, she closed her eyes and summoned the deepest, darkest memories: the time she failed Lucy when she needed her most, the guilt of losing her husband, the fear of being inadequate. Each memory raced forth, clawing for release as shadows began to coil tighter, tremors pulsed through the ground, threatening to rip them apart. But Sarah held firmly to Lucy, feeling the warmth of her courage blend with her own. "Feel it, Lucy. All of it. You're strong. Let it go." Lucy's terrified scream echoed. "I'm scared, Mommy." "And so am I," Sarah admitted, dread slick on her skin. "But if we face it, we can beat it." Lighting surged through their clasped hands, igniting brilliant waves of warmth that pushed against the darkness. The more they faced their fears, the more strength surged through them. The shadows shrieked in response, a cacophony of rage burning deep within the pit. But just as hope rose, the ground beneath them buckled violently. The abyss roared, angry that they dared challenge its hold. "You can't escape." It thundered, the very air tremoring in defiance. Suddenly, with a forceful pull, Sarah was hurled into the depths, arms flailing. "Lucy!" she screamed, the world spinning around her. As she plummeted, she felt her daughter's grip shred away, darkness grasping her legs like icy fingers, dragging Lucy down too, and then silence, the shadows had engulfed them both, Sarah gasped, her heart hammering as she stared into nothingness. They were separated, swallowed whole by fear. "Lucy!" She cried again, voice echoing in the dark void. Panic fanned around her like a wild fire, but just as suddenly, a dim light flickered ahead, shining through the choking shadows. A familiar laugh echoed in the distance. It was Lucy's laughter, a sound both haunting and hopeful. "Mommy," it said, trailing off into the infinite dark. "Help me with that." A chilling thought struck Sarah. If they were separated by their fears, then the path to salvation meant facing the darkness alone or together once more. But how could they reconnect in this terrifying void? As shadows shifted and whispers resumed, Sarah realized, it had only just begun. What awaited them in the dark? Would love be enough to light the way home? Or would they remain lost, forever haunted by their own darkness? Sarah stood frozen, heart pounding like a drum in the suffocating darkness. The silence was mind-numbing, each heartbeat felt like a countdown, spiraling into an abyss of dread. Lucy's laughter echoed, but it wasn't the sweet sound she remembered. It was twisted, echoing off endless walls, mocking her in the stillness. Lucy, the name fell from her lips, raw and filled with desperation. She took a shaky step forward into the dim light that flickered ahead, a lure, a cunning deception of hope, perhaps. Shadows danced around her, whispering secrets dripping with malice. With each step, the laughter morphed again, becoming cries, echoes of every choice Sarah had made. Choices that led to this very moment. "What have I done?" she whispered, agony tightening around her throat. Every sound pushed her back, urging her to retreat, to abandon the pursuit of her daughter, but the light glimmered with purpose. She was here to reclaim Lucy. If she faltered now, she might as well surrender her soul to the void. The landscape shifted around her, dark shapes forming and reforming, threatening to pull her down. "Face it," Sarah murmured, clenching her fists. Face it all. Encouraged by her own resolve, she stepped further into the illumination. The shadows slithered away, more reluctant now, and a figure began to materialize in the glow. "Lucy?" Hope surged but then splintered as the figure began to flicker, a distortion between dimensions. "Mommy!" The voice squealed, the once bright laughter now tinged with a haunting desperation. "I'm here, but what?" Sarah asked breathlessly, racing toward the light as it pulsed like a heartbeat. "Help me!" Lucy cried again. But this time, the words cut deep, filled with uncertainty. "You have to let go." Let go? What did that even mean in this twisted reality? Her daughter needed her. How could she ever release the bond? It was fear itself talking, fear that had trapped them both in this nightmare. "Let go of your pain." Lucy's voice rang clearer, resonating through the dark. "You're holding me back." The shadows shrieked, angry at the rising bond of understanding. They charged at Sarah, claws outstretched, ready to consume her regret. She stumbled but held her ground. "I won't let you take her." The shadows snarled, furious at her defiance. "You think you can escape us? You belong to us." "No!" Sarah shouted, feeling the ground beneath her shift as memories flooded back, moments of neglect, self-doubt, and guilt. Each one a tether binding Lucy to the torment of the abyss. Did releasing her pain mean setting Lucy free to face the darkness? Suddenly, the ground split open near Lucy's flickering figure. A gaping hole, swallowing light, threatening to pull them both in. "Mommy!" Lucy's voice screeched, filled with terror as she reached out, grasping for Sarah. This pull of darkness was different. It pushed against Sarah's chest, demanding surrender. She felt it, all her pain trying to drag her down. She had to confront it. "I release you," Sarah whispered, trembling. "I release my guilt, my fears, the memories that haunt us." The shadows howled, threatening to drown her in despair, but she pushed through. "I choose love," she screamed, and with those words, a blinding light erupted from her hands, and she thought she saw Lucy's eyes shine bright with hope, but with the light came screams, cries of angry shadows winding tighter, pulling, demanding her despair back. "No!" she shouted. "You will not have us!" The darkness roared, rattling her resolve. The abyss trembled, flickering light battling against it. Would this choice be enough? The pull intensified, the abyss ready to claim them once and for all, hovering on the edge of obliteration. What if Lucy was right? What if letting go meant the end not for them, but the rise of something far more terrible? "Mom!" Lucy's voice faded, blending with the sinister murmurs that clawed for Sarah's strength. And just like that, the darkness lunged, aiming for Sarah's heart, whispering promises of despair. Can love triumph over the deepest of fears? Or would this choice seal their fates forever? The abyss swirled around Sarah, a vortex of darkness and despair, threatening to consume everything she held dear. Her heart pounded violently as she grasped the weight of her choice. She could feel Lucy's presence flickering in the distance, both a beacon of hope and a reminder of the terror closing in. "I love you, Lucy!" She shouted against the chaos, her voice strong but quivering with the frayed edges of fear. Lucy's figure shimmered, almost ethereal, but the shadows clawed at her, eager to snuff out the light. "Mommy, don't let it take me." With every ounce of strength she could muster, Sarah stepped forward, banishing her fear to the back of her mind. "I will not give in," she shouted defiantly, the words ripping through her like a battle cry. She felt warmth radiating from within her, a flicker of resolve against the encroaching darkness. "You are my daughter, my light. I believe in you." As she focused on Lucy, the shadows hissed, recoiling from the intensity of the love radiating between them. The very fabric of the darkness began to tremble, flickers of light breaking through like dawn on a stormy night. "Help me," Lucy cried, her voice merging with intensifying fervor. "You have to break it. The fear it binds us." Just as the realization struck, a searing heat pulsed at Sarah's core, igniting her spirit. She closed her eyes, envisioning every regret, every fear, defective moments and insecurities that had haunted her life. "I release you," she whispered to herself and to Lucy, tears flowing freely. "I release you, I release myself." The darkness roared, raging against the newfound light surging from within her. The shadows twisted and writhed as her determination lit the path before them, illuminating the chaos. "I am no longer afraid. You will not claim us," Sarah yelled, grounding her feet into the shifting landscape. She reached deep inside, feeling a surge of hidden strength. The blinding light erupted from her, a radiant wave engulfing the shadows, forcing them into retreat. Lucy's image solidified, her features emerging from the darkness brave and fierce. "Mommy!" she gasped, and for a moment, the connection shimmered brighter than ever. With every ounce of energy, Sarah pressed forward, the light intensifying, weaving through the darkness, fighting back against the fear that had pinched their bond for so long. "Together, Lucy. Together." Each past hurt dissipated in the warmth of shared memories, the laughter, the hugs, the simple moments that made life sweet. With each recollection, the shadows shrieked louder, scrambling for cover, but they were no match for the raw power of love ignited between mother and daughter. "Mother, daughter, together. We stand united," Sarah proclaimed, voice unwavering as she pulled the light tighter around them. The darkness roared one final time, frantic to resist the embracing warmth, but it was too late. The brilliance of their connection shattered the malevolence, rupturing the veils of despair with a cascade of shimmering light. Suddenly, there was silence, the air grew still, the void they faced transformed into an expanse of bright daylight. Heart racing, Sarah blinked against the brightness, unsteady on her feet, and found herself back in her home. The walls that had once trembled with sorrow now glowed with warmth, and in front of her stood Lucy, solid and real, alive. "Mommy!" Lucy ran into her arms, and they embraced tightly. The world felt safe again, free from the shadows of the past. Clarity washed over Sarah, the weight of fears and regrets lifted, leaving behind only love and resilience. As they pulled apart, Sarah saw Max tumble into the room, bright-eyed and full of laughter. "Mom! Lucy! What is going on?" He beamed, yet there was a depth in his gaze that spoke of understanding. "I think we're free now," Sarah breathed, a tear rolling down her cheek in relief. The children, the home, the very fabric of their lives felt renewed, strengthened by the darkness they had bravely faced and conquered. Looking out into the bright suburban street, Sarah realized that it was alive again, filled with laughter and life. The shadows no longer lurked in corners, but the lessons from their journey remained etched in her heart. "Let us make some memories," she uttered softly, drawing both children close. "Together, always." They stepped outside into the warmth of the sun, hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, united against darkness, fortified by love, and free to live without fear. This is where the tale ends, but every end is another beginning. So, before you go, here's what you need to do right now. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and make sure we keep bringing you spine-chilling content like this. And flood the comments section with your thoughts, theories, and reactions to this conclusion. I want to hear every single one of your takes. Finally, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible ending. Don't wait even one more second to show your support, because true fans know how important it is to keep this community alive.